Show me what you got.
How do you know these things?
You mean I'm right?
Hello, it's Bob Quinn with Steelers Sanctuary. It's Tuesday. You know what that means? Mock draft time. So we're having so much fun with Draft Professor 2025. We're going to go ahead and use this engine again this week. We're going to do the same thing we did last week. We're going to do the five player shot at the first round, and then we'll do a 7-round mock. So picking the first round here, for those of you who don't remember, it's the first round BPA and the first round Fanatic Challenge. Picking for 21 for the Steelers here. And we're not doing any trades in this one, but who knows what will happen when we actually do the mock draft. So let's go ahead and enter in, see who's going to be available. I'm interested to see what's happened since last week, see if any of our picks influence them moving up or down the draft board. And let's see who drops to us here at 21. So it's thinking. Okay, so we got Matthew Golden here. We got Jahdae Barron. We got Jalen Milroe, who really hope the Steelers don't do that. Siobhan Revell, Omarion Hampton, a lot of guys we like here. So right off the rip, we're going to go with Matthew Golden. Still strongly believe if tomorrow Uncle Aaron announces that, hey, he's coming to Pittsburgh, that they're going to go weapon in the first round. I know we need defensive line help, but there are some guys. There are some guys we can get later in the draft who I feel like we can, maybe see something nice happen. Okay, so it pops back up. We've got our elite corner prospect, Jahdae Barron. Derek Harmon is very Mel Kiper came out today, associated him to the Steelers. I mean, I get it. I do feel like he's a pretty good player. I just don't think he fits what the Steelers do. That being said, I think Jahdae Barron has the chance for the Steelers to put an elite slot corner on the field and potentially fill the Mike Hilton role if they ever decide to blitz again. And he would be faster off that edge. He'd be better in coverage than Mike Hilton. It's a piece that's been missing from the defense for quite a while. So for my second number one pick, I'm going to go with Jahdae Barron. Let's see who looks like we'll have some opportunity to pick defensive line here, I'm sure. Not picking Jalen Milroe. I'd poke my eyes out if that happens. Revell is climbing, and I'm intrigued by him. I know with the injury, he should be ready by training camp, and I love that kid. I just can't pull the trigger. Omarion Hampton, Walter Nolan is here. Nick Emenwari, who I think is the best player in the draft, is here. That being said, defensive line, we need it. Walter Nolan is definitely a guy I think is in the top 2 draft picks as far as defensive line goes. So I'm going to take Walter Nolan and run here. Let's see who our third opportunity is. All right, so Omarion Hampton's here. Trey Amos, boundary corner. I'm just ignoring that Jalen Milroe is there because never in a million years would I do that. I don't think the Steelers will either in the first round, if we're being honest. So I'm going to take my man Omarion here because I do think if we pick a running back, I think he's the best running back in the draft. I have him ahead of Gente. Gente's good. I think Omarion's a little bit better. And if you watched our podcast yesterday, and here's Ashton Gente, to kind of jump up and say, "Hey, here I am." Yeah, it'd be good value, but I can't say that 2 of our 5. As much as I think he would have to adjust his game, I'm going to double up this week on defensive linemen. I am going to pick Harmon over Nick Emenwari. So let's take a look, just seeing what we've got here. We get an A+ for Matthew Golden. We get an A+ for Jahdae Barron. We get an A for Walter Nolan, an A for Omarion Hampton, and an A+ for Derek Harmon. I got to say, if it's one of those 5 guys, Harmon, I wouldn't necessarily love, but I would get it and I would understand it, especially if Kenneth Grant and Walter Nolan were off the board. So pretty nice little result there. I'm happy with where we are with that. So let's go ahead and go back to the draft. Now we're going to do a 7-round mock. So we're going to switch this over to the 7. Waiting for the computer to kind of catch up here. I'm going to move draft randomness to 6 on this. We're going to use the default settings here. Actually, no, we're not. We're going to use this as is. Pick the Steelers, and away we go into a 7-round mock draft. Be kind of interesting to see if there's trades available to us. Obviously, potentially the best move for the Steelers is to trade back in the draft. It just depends on what becomes available. We're not going to do a pre-draft trade here, so let's hit start and then see if something pops to us at 21. All right, so right off the rip, the Cowboys are interested. I don't know that I'm necessarily interested in dropping all the way to 44 with 76 there. I kind of get it. Let's reject that trade. I don't think 44 and 76 for 21 is great value. So let's see what's available to us. John A. Barron's sitting right there. Derek Harmon's sitting right there. And Kenneth Grant and Omarion Hampton. We're not seeing, this comes down to an elite slot corner would be nice. It really would. But being that we're not seeing, Luther Burden, Jaden Higgins, Alec Amanor, let's take a look here and just see if we maybe tried to weasel something out of the Bills here, because I do think based on this board, the Bills might be a willing trade partner. So, but it's not giving us the opportunity to get there first. So let's take a look here. Rams are a team that could be interested. And doesn't look like the only other one I can think of off the top of my head who maybe we can get a first out of is the Vikings. Let's see here. No, they're not giving us the ability here, so we're gonna take Kenneth Grant. It's kind of a no brainer based on who's on the board here, and with Matthew Golden gone, it becomes a little bit more of a okay. Let's see how this shakes out. There's some we've been taking the weapon in round 1, and then getting a D line. Let's flip it. Let's see how this goes. Moving on down to 83. Let's see who's available. Isaiah Bond just went. That's interesting. So Savion Williams is around. Damian Martinez is the guy I really like. Let's take a look at the running backs, see who's available. So interesting that Caleb Johnson is still here. If you watch the Tony Pauline podcast with me and Dave, he really is high on Damian Martinez. I like him as well. Let's just take a glance at the wide receivers. Dave kind of likes Savion Williams. I think he's a jack of all trades kind of guy. I'm not sold on him. I think based on what our needs for the team, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take Damian Martinez here, who, like I said, Tony was really high on him, thought he might end up being one of the top 3 or 4 running backs in this class. And in this class, that's really saying something. He's also a bigger back, kind of an every down guy. And he's got good speed. So definitely an upgrade over Najee Harris, and kind of becomes that nice tandem with Jaylen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell. You have 2 smaller backs who fill different roles. You bring in a little bit bigger back like Martinez. All right, so now so far we've picked Kenneth Grant, we've picked Damian Martinez. It's definitely time to look at another weapon here. Let's take a look at who's available to us in the wide receivers. You know, Dante Thornton is an interesting name. He's a big guy. He's got a limited route tree, but he's also a guy who could turn into an absolute superstar at the next level. I'm going to be hard pressed to pass him up here. Yeah, especially with this. Let's take just a glance at what the corners are available, though, because corner is definitely a low key need for us. There's some guys here I think it might be available to us in the next round. So that being said, we're going to take a swing at a boomer bust. Dave made the point yesterday on our podcast that he feels like Thornton has a lot of Martavis Bryant to his game. I think getting him in the fourth here is probably really, really high value. So let's see how that goes for us. And then the draft professor is moving down the board. I think we confused it a little bit, so it's moving a little slower. Really thinking about those picks before it gets to us. I'll be interested to see what we have available to us here in the fifth. I'm curious to see last week with the quarterbacks, there weren't a lot that fell to the fifth. So let's just take a look at what we got available to us. A couple guys that jump out. Nazir Stackhouse is a nice player. I think based on our needs here, if I'd known Dylan Sampson was going to be there, I might have gone a different way for the running backs. But no brainer in the fifth round. Give me Tyler Shuck all day long. I think the buzz on him being a borderline first round pick, I just think that's a smokescreen. I mean, I could maybe see him late second, early third, but him dropping all the way to the fifth here, I think we got to go for that. That gives us a really nice prospect, and getting him in the fifth round means if he doesn't pan out, and if he doesn't, you know, if he's not the guy to take over for Aaron Rodgers or move past Mason Rudolph, it's no problem with a fifth round draft pick. You can still get a guy in the first next year and not have any sweat of, oh my gosh, we got to pay this guy. All right. So jumping into the sixth round so far, we've gotten Kenneth Grant. We've gotten Damian Martinez. We've gotten Dante Thornton. We've got Tyler Shuck. So let's take a look at what we got here in the cornerback area. Upton Stout, I get it. I mean, he could certainly do worse here. Let's go back to all prospects and just curious on the safety side, who's still left here. We'll go strictly for value here. We're going to take Upton Stout. He's a guy who could go as high as the second round, and he's sitting here in the sixth. Might as well take a shot at it, see what happens. If nothing else, we're bringing a guy in to kind of compete who's got some skill at boundary corner, nickel corner. Not really one of my top 5-7 corners, but this late in the draft, based on the draft engine, I think we're getting some value here. So I'm okay with this pick. All right, so now we're moving on to round 7. I saw looks like Raheem Sanders and some guys go here. We're coming up 10 picks away. Some of the guards are coming off the board. Jimmy Horn, an interesting wide receiver. Guy, he's going in the 6th, 7th round, but according to the next gen stats, he actually was the fastest guy at the combine. As far as miles per hour, he didn't run the best 40, but as far as just moving, he was the fastest guy. So a guy I really like is Cameron Jackson, defensive line depth. I'm just going to take a little quick glance at the guards just to see who's here. Based on it falling this way, I think you got to go Cameron Jackson. We'll double up on defensive line here. And this is under the assumption that we're keeping George Pickens, and we've done some solid work in the trenches as far as the defensive line goes. I think Jackson, he has all the tools. He's a big guy, and he could flash. He's very inconsistent. That's why he's been going in the 6th or 7th round. But if Kenneth Grant pans out and you got Keanu Benton, you got 2 or 3 years to develop Jackson. Steelers are high on Logan Lee too. You could end up with a nice little depth, 3 or 4 defensive tackles here. So let's take a look at how we did. So mock draft, we got an A for Kenneth Grant in the first. We got an A for Damian Martinez in the third. We got a B for Dante Thornton. I'll take that. That's a swing. In the fifth, a B for Tyler Shuck, which based on the fact he's a borderline first round, you think we'd get an A for that, but we didn't. Upton Stout, we get an A plus, probably because he's mocked in the second in this engine, but he's dropping to the sixth. I think he's realistically, if you got him on day 3, you'd probably be pretty happy. And if you got him in the 6th, you should be ecstatic. And Cameron Jackson, I mean, I love Tonka Hemingway, but he's kind of moved into the 6th, maybe the 5th. And, may have to, a guy who I really liked and have put out a lot of positive buzz for, he just may not be there for the Steelers. And I don't know if I'm altogether upset with Cameron Jackson, who could be a physical freak being the pick here. So I'll post this up on social media. Thanks for watching. Remember, podcast Thursday night. We got a special guest. Zach Harris is going to be on. So look forward to seeing everybody. Thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.
But he's not weird or anything, is he?
No, he's totally normal.
I think you should be working at the snack bar.
You better relax, Bob.
I mean, normal for us.
All right, let's go.
Now you've had enough.
Okay, crazy guy. I'm gonna go home now.